You know me by now. Won the highest award at CaLARTS, worked as a storyboard artist for Walt Disney Animation Studios, and quit to become an independent artist full-time, which, by the way, is everything I ever dreamed it would be. I am always trying to save you money. I am always trying to share my knowledge, and I know that there is a lot of gatekeeping in the animation industry, so we're not going to do that here. So without further ado, here is everything that I learned as a character animation student at CaLARTS. I have boiled it down to 7 lessons. We're just going to go through them in order. We'll call this part 1 for now. There's likely to be more in the future. Now here's T. CaLARTS character animation classes move in a sequential order from year 1 to year 4. You may not know this, but you cannot transfer into CaLARTS. No matter how many years of experience you have, how good your portfolio is, or how many college credits you've accumulated, you will always start as a year 1 student. Think of it like a trade school. You need to learn the basics first before you can move on to the next step. So in year 1, you're introduced to a few core skills, and for the rest of the years, you just improve upon those skills. Those skills are design, story, animation, life drawing, and filmmaking. Let's start at the top. Design. The first thing that you are going to need as an artist of any kind in any discipline is the basic principles of design. Those principles are balance, emphasis, movement, pattern and repetition, rhythm, proportion, variety, and unity. Now I've provided you with some basic examples on screen here, and hopefully those examples are enough to get the point across, because it is very important that you understand. It took me a very, very, very long time to even begin to understand, but whether or not you know it, design lies underneath everything that you do. It is the basics of all basics. Now, I had never even heard of these principles before I started at CaLARTS, and even after I learned them in year 1, they still felt mystical to me, like always out of reach. I struggled to even recognize them in other people's work, much less integrated into my own. Our design teacher was Mike Moon, and for every assignment, he gave us 1 week to bring in the perfect design based off of a 1-word simple idea. Judgment, for example, or loss. Our teacher had us use construction paper only. No paint, no markers, no pencil, and definitely no digital. Then he would take our pieces and hang them on the wall in a gallery style, and he would pick out the best and worst examples of the week. He critiqued very gently, but his critiques were very, very clear. And then he would open up commentary to the class. Now, I started very firmly in the bottom middle of the class, but by the end of the semester, I could pretty consistently reach near the top. But I did that by trial and error and by learning the teacher's sensibilities. I did not do it by learning design. I still had no clue what I was doing. I could not make a design decision to save my life. To me, design was for Mike Moon's class, and there was no way to harness it anywhere else. Until second year story. Now, I had excelled in first year story. I was one of the top 3 in the class. I made people bust their sides laughing. But in second year story, I suddenly couldn't do a damn thing right. Now, we had gallery style presentation in that class too, and the teacher ripped me apart week to week until finally a classmate said, and this is a verbatim quote because I remember it exactly. He said, "It's like you don't remember anything from design." And suddenly I saw, design is not just for design class. Design is for your entire life. Design is feng shui. It's the color of the car that you choose. It's the way you wear your hair and the style of your jeans. Design is photography, geography, topiary, and the psychology of the shelves in your local grocery store. Design is everything. It's inescapable, and it controls every aspect of our lives. That little comment changed everything for me. It did not mean that I suddenly could hit the mark. I still miss the mark 90% of the time, but now that I can see it, I can continue to try and get closer, and I am always trying to get closer. Because the first thing that I learned at CaLARTS, not every discipline is your discipline, but that does not mean you can't improve. Perfect example, animation. Now, we're not going to focus at all on CG animation in this section because, contrary to popular belief, computer-generated animation is just a tool. In order to CG animate, you first need to know all the basics of hand-drawn animation. Again, foundations first, accessories later. So here, very briefly, are the 12 principles of animation. Get ready to screenshot. 1. Squash and stretch. 2. Anticipation. 3. Staging. 4. Straight ahead action versus pose to pose. 5. Follow through or overlapping action. 6. Slow ins, slow outs. 7. Arcs. 8. Secondary action. 9. Timing. 10. Exaggeration. 11. Solid drawing. And 12. Appeal. Now, these principles were first developed at Disney and introduced to the public by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston in their landmark book, which I talk about on this channel all the time. If you can learn the 12 principles of animation, you can animate, period. Work on them, hone them, master them. This is everything that you need to become one of the greatest animators of all time. But you can learn the 12 principles of animation from a book, this book. So let me tell you what you can't learn from a book. Watching a master animate one time will teach you more than years of studying alone. At CaLARTS, I had the privilege of watching a number of master animators work. My teachers were Brian Ferguson, Robert Domingo, Dariush Derekshani, James Baxter, Wayne Unton, and Dale Bear. Now, all of these animators were absolutely brilliant, but I would still fall asleep in their class. And the reason was because I just wasn't interested in animation. And I told you CaLARTS is a trade school, so you can't skip classes, drop them, or switch them out. So animation is mandatory whether you like it or not. I still had to do my crappy little animations, and I still had to submit them for credit, even though all I ever wanted to do was get back to story. I just wasn't interested in this part of filmmaking, so I never thought that I'd have to learn it. I thought I was going to be a story artist, and I am. But I know now that treating an artistic discipline as beautiful as animation, as if it doesn't matter, will cut you off from being the kind of artist that you've always dreamed of being. Because squash and stretch is not just for animation, and arcs are not just for animation. The 12 principles of animation work because when used all together, they create the illusion of life. We animators can mimic life so effectively that it tricks the brain into genuinely believing that a character is alive. And you can see those skills in still images too, which is why almost every animator you'll ever meet will have a Norman Rockwell painting hanging at their desk. I blew off animation until my senior year of school, when I suddenly had a come-to-God awakening. And I had that awakening because I had this hilarious idea. My senior film would be an animated dinosaur up high on the screen, and me on stage below having a fight with it because the dinosaur is my roommate. And somehow, months later, I found myself with the monumental task of animating a Brachiosaurus as if he were a washed-up, gay background actor from West Hollywood. And he had anxiety. I couldn't cut corners. If I wanted this film to work, I had to get it right. So I went to my 2 animation teachers. Dale held class in a classroom called the Palace, which is the 21st century equivalent of CaLARTS' A113. In the Palace, there is an old animation desk specifically for demonstration. So I went to Dale and I asked him for help, and he did 3 drawings for me. And as he did them, I started to understand. We're not animating to make something move. We are animating to make something come alive. Using the 12 principles of animation, Dale did what I did not even know was possible. So I stood next to the animation desk for the rest of the night and watched Dale help other kids with their films. One by one, Dale made a mark here and a mark there and fixed everyone's animations in a way that only a person with 50 years of expertise can do. If you're wondering what else he worked his magic on, by the way. Owl from Winnie the Pooh, Yzma from The Emperor's New Groove, the Frog Hunters from Princess and the Frog, and oh yeah, he also worked on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. After Dale helped me to see what was possible, I took my animation to go see my CG animation teacher, Wayne Unton, who is, among other things, the lead for Elsa on the Frozen franchise. From Wayne, I learned that animation could be fun. That was not something that I had ever considered before, but it makes sense because Wayne was not just the CG animator. He was also a paper animator, a hand-drawn animator, a stop-motion animator, a sculpture animator, and a flipbook animator. Wayne animated on an iPad, a Cintiq, a stack of Post-its, and a Nintendo DS. And he did it because it sounded like fun. So after watching Wayne work, I decided that maybe it was possible that I could have fun animating too. And I got to work. I animated every day, 10 hours a day for 4 months. Not uncommon at CaLARTS, but very uncommon for me. I went back and forth to my animation mentors, getting critiques and notes, and then bringing them back and learning advanced techniques from them like staggers and lip sync and something called business, which is what Disney animators called the thing that a character does on screen when they have nothing else to do. And that was the film that won me that big award. A film with no background, no color, very little sound design. I won that award on the strength of my animation and my story alone. Because the second thing that I learned at CaLARTS, lean into your strengths, but be open to them changing. Because you never know for sure where you're headed. until you're there. Oh, and story first, of course. And how do you get better at story? A lot of you have asked me this question specifically, so here you go. Now, this is the discipline that I'm most passionate about, so this is where I've collected the meat of the exercises that I'll be sharing with you today. But foundations first. You know what a story is, of course you do. But in animation, we often use the word story to refer to the art of storyboards. A storyboard is a sequence of images that tells a story. You cannot make a film until you've locked the story. So the art of storyboarding naturally attracts a lot of natural-born storytellers. But it is an art. And it is a set of technical skills that can be learned. And we can go into those skills in another video if you're really interested. But for now, foundations first. My first year story teacher was a former CaLARTS student who taught us all what it means to entertain, to create an experience, and to use a story to change the way that people think. Here are the exercises that he taught us exactly in the way that he taught them to us. Now, I will tell you, our teacher told us that he ripped these exercises one for one from the Pixar story internship that he landed when he was a student at school. The Pixar story internship is extremely exclusive. They take 2 students per year. But remember, I said no gatekeeping, so here they are for free. You will get 1 to 2 weeks to do each of these following exercises. Commit at the start. It will take 8 weeks total. Allot your time accordingly. Number 1, the illustration. This is meant to ease you into the work. Pick an illustration, build a story around it, board it out. It should be exactly 20 panels and you get 1 week. Number 2, the news story. Pick an interesting headline. Board it out. You get 1 week, 50 to 100 panels. Number 3, the script page. Pick a script page from a movie that you don't know all that well. Board it out. Use as many panels as it takes. You get 2 weeks for this one. Fun anecdote, I picked Jurassic Park and I changed the camera 500,000 times until finally I looked at it and realized it all took place on this one shot. Humiliating. Number 4, board a Greek myth. Have fun with this one. 1 week. And number 5, board a personal story. You should have learned a lot from doing all those exercises. Use it all here. 2 weeks. I recommend running these exercises with friends as many times as you can. Consider making it a weekly meeting like a book club. First year story was a riot because if you do your job right, you bring the house down. And if you do your job wrong, your crew will let you know. It's win-win. If you're the only artist that you know, run the exercises alone for now, but start looking for art friends. In person is best, online is fine too, but you'll need at least 1 art friend for this next exercise. And this one is called the Hirsch-Molina Story Exercise, named after 2 students from the CaLARTS graduating class of 2007, Alex Hirsch and Adrian Molina. You need a friend for this exercise, and each of you will need to come up with $100. If $100 seems doable, up it to $1,000 or $10,000. It should be a painful sum of money. A doable sum will not work. You need to be desperate. And that's because the exercise goes like this. Every day, you both pitch each other 3 good TV show ideas. They must be good. Now that seems easy, but the game goes on until one of you cannot come up with 3 good show ideas. That may take a week or it may take 6 months. But eventually your brain will run out of good ideas. And then one of you will repeat yourself or come up with trash. And at that point, pay up. One of you is getting $100 and it better be you. This exercise will hurt your wallet and your ego, but at the end of it, you should have at least 21 good ideas for a TV show. And it works because our story teacher told us that the Hirsch-Molina story exercise is what produced the seed for Gravity Falls. The last exercise I'll teach you is one that you can do while you are doing your standard lifelong filmmaker's homework, which is watching movies all the time. If you aren't watching movies all the time, you need to start. Make a Letterboxd account, log some movies, rate them, write reviews, start making collections, and start forming your sensibilities. My favorite films are Inglourious Basterds, Arrival, Suzume, and Pirates of the Caribbean. Find yours, guard them with your life, and start dissecting them. If you know all the words to your favorite film, that's a good start, because it's only after once you know the films that well, then you can start to notice things like the symbolism of Barbossa's apple, or the light in this glass of milk. And here is a super quick little story exercise that I still do to this day. Pause on your favorite shots and jot them down in a notebook. That is one of the fastest, simplest, and smartest ways to improve your craft. Steal. Start inserting your own characters and build your collection of shots. Because the third thing that I learned when I was at CaLARTS, that's all filmmaking is, baby. Stealing and stealing and stealing. And then translating it into your own. And how do you learn to translate? Well, I think you already know. Now, rounding out the classes, we get to life drawing. Life drawing is mandatory at CalArts, 6 hours a week, and you have to draw on those big newsprint pads, the huge ones that you see in the movies. You sit there drawing all day until your shoulders, your back, and your neck are sore. And then, the next day, there is an optional life drawing class for 6 more hours. There is also a painting class for guess how long? 6 hours a week. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, like I was and everyone else who goes to the school is, that is way too much life drawing. But it's not. It's barely enough. Because if you spend 3 hours in design class, 3 hours in animation class, 3 hours in story class, and 18 hours a week life drawing, what do you think you're learning in that class? That's right. How to draw. You want to be an artist? Then life drawing is necessary. You cannot get around this. You cannot draw out of your head forever. You must reference, and you cannot reference only from photos. If you want to learn to translate three-dimensional objects into 2 dimensions, and yes, CG animation is also 2 dimensions since you're looking at it on a screen, then you must learn to translate 3-dimensional objects into 2 dimensions, which is what you do with life drawing. If you move slightly, your drawing must move. If your model moves slightly, your drawing must move. If someone bumps the light by accident, your drawing must move. The practice that you get flattening the 3-dimensional world into 2 dimensions will train your brain to go back and forth between the two. Do you understand? Your drawings will become convincing. You will learn perspective, you will learn anatomy, you will learn lighting, you will learn the planes of the face. Art is design, but it is also observation. If you can't draw, it's not because your hand doesn't know how to draw. It's because your brain doesn't know how to see. And how do I know that? Because if a master artist suddenly lost their hands, they would learn to draw with their feet. And if they lost their feet, they would learn to draw with their nose. I will now explain to you the concept of pencil mileage. You may have heard this one before. It is simply this. How many miles have you drawn with the line of your pencil? If the answer is less than 1,000, you have no hope of becoming a master. Pick up your pencil whenever you can. We both have a lot of miles to go. 18 hours of life drawing a week is what took my drawings from this to this in 4 years. Because the 4th thing I learned at CalArts, and arguably the most important, you cannot get better without doing the work. And now finally, for the culmination, the thing that brings it all together, and the reason we go to CalArts in the first place, filmmaking. Now, CalArts is very unique as an animation school in that the most important part of the curriculum is your yearly film, and all of the classes that you take serve to help you make that yearly film, to the point where in the month leading up to the due date, there are 3 or so weeks where classes become optional, and if you do decide to go to class, the teachers will just use that time to help you work on your film. At CalArts, you get a lightning fast crash course in something that takes some people their entire lives to learn, which is that you must learn by doing, and you must finish what you start. When you start something new, you will feel unprepared. You will say you're not ready, and you will procrastinate and procrastinate and procrastinate. But if you want to be a filmmaker, you have to make films. And if you're just starting, your films are going to be bad. But even if they're bad, they still have to be done. So you just have to let them be bad. You have to embarrass yourself, and you have to ask for help. And the kids who couldn't do those things couldn't finish their films. And at CalArts, not finishing your yearly film is the greatest sin of all. Your films are a proof of concept for what you can do as an artist. Your films get you hired, and you get 4 shots. If you swing all 4 times, you may hit. So you can't be worried about them sucking, because that will stop you from swinging, and you just need to swing. Prior to going to CalArts, I was an ideas guy. I had so many brilliant ideas floating around in my head, but I had never finished a work. In my first year of CalArts, I finished 1 film. In my second year, I finished 1 film. In my third year, I started 3 films, finished 2. And in my 4th year at CalArts, I finished and submitted 13 films. And one of those films got my name engraved on a golden plaque in the character animation office. 2 of those 13 films were selected for the 2018 Producers Show. One of those films got me meetings with Gotham Group, Netflix, Disney TV, Illumination, and Paramount all in 1 week. The year after I graduated, I worked a booth at a convention, and CalArts had the booth next to me, and they had a screen playing my film to try to lure prospective students in. Now, what happened to my other 15 films? Well, some of them bombed spectacularly. Think about it. 1 in 13 is a 7% chance. 7% success rate. That is a 93% chance of failure. And bombing sucks. Can you imagine a comedy that you spent an entire year of your life working on plays on the screen in front of 300 people and it's crickets? And that happened to me twice. I bombed twice. The first time I bombed was in my very first year of CaLARTS, my first time ever showing my work to anyone, and I bombed. Did I consider dropping out? No, not for a second. And the reason is because the last thing that I learned at CaLARTS is that failing is good. Making an idiot of yourself is good. Bombing in front of a large audience is very, 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 very good. Because if after an experience like that, you can somehow get the courage to convince yourself to get back on the horse, you will become a much stronger artist and a much stronger person too. There is so much to be learned from an audience's apathy. Watching your own failure on the big screen allows you to see exactly where you went wrong. One of my most treasured memories from my 4 years at CaLARTS was watching another student's unfinished film play in total silence in my first year. And then watching it play again the following year, fully colored, beautifully animated, with amazing sound design. And hearing the entire audience go crazy. People were screaming, stomping, and slapping the young filmmaker on the back. I have never to this day seen an audience react like that, and I saw My Chemical Romance live. But it's because everyone was proud. To finish something that embarrassed you the year before, that is the resilience of the artist's spirit. I consider that one of the greatest lessons I've learned in my artistic life, and I thank that young filmmaker with all my heart. Because at the end of the day, I learned so much from my teachers. I learned so much from my classes, and I learned so much from the program itself. But I learned more from my classmates. I learned more from watching them fail around me and get back up. I learned more from the fourth years who welcomed me in as an incoming freshman. I learned from the people who sat next to me in class and showed me keyboard shortcuts and redlined my drawings for free and were honest with me in critiques both in class and out. And I learned from their laughter and from their tears and from their apathy. I learned to hone my artistic voice, and I learned what worked, and I learned what would never, ever, ever, ever work. I learned from my friends, and I'm still learning from my friends. I live in Portland now. I have lived in Portland for years, and I still have monthly phone calls with 4 different classmates to talk about our lives and our art and our dreams. I'm workshopping a poem right now for a former classmate's first graphic novel. I'm in 2 graphic novels, and I still voice act for my friends' TV shows and movies. I get texts that say, I love your latest comic, and here's what made me laugh, and here's what I loved, and keep up the good work. Friends mail me books on Story and buy me lunch whenever I'm in town. I'm more than 1,000 miles away from the epicenter of the animation industry, and animation still touches my life every day, whether I like it or not. This morning, I just texted my former artist manager. Last night, I emailed an artist at Pixar who encouraged me 10 years ago when I was still dreaming that someday I'd make it. Art is community. CaLARTS helped me to find it. There is a whole world out here, and the best part of being an artist is finding your place in it. So good luck. Keep it up. I know that's why you're watching. And if there's one thing you can learn from me, it's this. The only artist who fails is the artist who gives up. Don't give up. I'll see you soon.